The opinions expressed during this show are not necessarily those of this station's, its employees, or advertisers, but are solely the opinions of the host and the guests that appear on the show. It's time now for Tea Party Talk with Tom Z, hosted by Tom Zawistowski, president of the We the People Convention and executive director of the Portage County Tea Party. Get ready to become a totally engaged American who is informed about the critical issues that are affecting the welfare and individual rights of all Americans today.
S&K Asphalt and Concrete has been serving residential, commercial, and industrial customers since 1988 with quality paving services. The experts at S&K Asphalt and Concrete have the knowledge and experience to meet your paving needs. From parking lots to driveways to repairs and resurfacing, S&K paves the way. Call today for a free estimate. 330-724-9090. That's 330-724-9090. Or visit online at skasphaltconcrete.com.
Are you concerned about your family's safety? Now, Target Thing Pro Shop is a female-friendly gun shop, range, and training center. Target Thing is in Garrettsville. Or on the web at targetthing.com. Target Thing is where they offer guns, ammo, and training to help you keep your family safe. Target Thing Pro Shop.
Have you ever visited Monticello, the home of our third president? Wouldn't you like to meet Thomas Jefferson at Monticello? Tommy Jefferson is a journalist just out of college. Her first assignment is to go to Monticello and write a story about this beautiful and historical home. She accidentally goes through a time portal and meets Mr. Jefferson. She actually gets involved in some historical events, and all along, she thinks Mr. Jefferson is just an actor playing the part for tourists. This is a fun story that includes historical facts and is actually a great way to teach grade school and middle school kids about our third president. You'll find out why he wrote the famous separation of church and state letter. You can order it on Amazon by going to Amazon and typing in Tommy Jefferson and order it online. It is also available on Kindle through Amazon.
All right, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning on Tea Party Talk with Tom Z. We're glad to have you, and we appreciate everyone who's watching the live stream on Wednesday mornings at 10:30 at teapartytalkwithtomz.com, and everybody that's listening on the radio on WHLO 640 AM in Akron, Ohio, on Saturday mornings from 9 until 9:30 a.m. Thanks to all of you from across the state of Ohio and in parts of Michigan, Indiana, and western Pennsylvania. And also for those of you who are listening on iHeartRadio at 640WHLO.com, thank you for listening as well. Before we get to our guests this morning and our big announcement, I do want to address, I was pretty harsh last week on the Cleveland public officials, the mayor and the police chief, and some of the things they were doing in preparation for this announcement. But I have to take my hats off, particularly to Common Pleas Judge John P. O'Donnell, for his incredible explanation, folks, of why he ruled the officer innocent. It was wonderful. He took an hour to explain it, and if anybody watched that, they would understand that he had no choice but to rule the way he did. And I also want to give the Cleveland Police Department a really big round of applause for the way they handled the crowds. They did the things that they didn't do in Ferguson and Baltimore. The first person who got on the line, they were all over him. And it was brilliant to announce it on Memorial Day Saturday when, the media, our buddies at CNN, they were in the Hamptons, right? So they weren't there with their cameras and stuff to instigate things, and the Cleveland Police Department did a great job. Now, of course, we've got race hustler Al Sharpton coming to town on Friday, so we'll see how that turns out. But I wanted to shout out to the Cleveland Police Department, the judge, and the mayor for doing a great job after I had criticized them last week for doing some of the things they did in Baltimore. Though I still got to ask the police chief in Cleveland why he thinks it's okay for them for the protesters to block some streets but not other streets. I think when we do things in the Tea Party, when we've done things in Cleveland, we have to get a permit. We actually have to pay for police officers to help with security and traffic. I guarantee you the people who protested in Cleveland about this didn't do any permits. That's for sure. We're going to talk more about paid protesters later in the show. But now on with some very exciting news. With us, our guest today is John McAvoy, who is a great friend, a great patriot, and he's the president of the Northwest Ohio Conservative Coalition, who is going to announce the results of the first statewide Ohio Conservatives United poll, which indicates the current presidential preferences of conservatives in Ohio. And, John, are you with me on the line here this morning?
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me on, Tom.
Oh, John, this is exciting. And this was John's brainchild, and the folks at the Toledo Tea Party got behind this. And John, I want to just congratulate you on what I think is going to be a very significant effort. Before you announce the results, can you just tell people, what you're doing, what the Ohio Conservatives United poll is really about?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the kudos, but it really wasn't all my idea. I just took some other people's ideas and we kind of tweaked on them, and we said, well, we're not sure this particular thing's going to work, but we want to try something else. And basically, this thing has been tweaked and adjusted for about the last few months, and we think we actually came up with a very, very good formula that the conservative groups around the state of Ohio are very, very interested in.
Well, these people are just groups like yours, John, and like mine, the Portage County Tea Party. These polls were conducted in person in a lot of cases, and some were done online. And boy, our friends at FreedomWorks, really stepped up big time and sent out a statewide email yesterday. And we got a bunch of results from them as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. Basically, Tom, what we do is Ohio Conservatives United is our main goal is just to get people to talk about who their favorite candidate is, who's their number 2, 3, 4, who would be acceptable to them as a conservative presidential candidate. And then we kind of ask them a question, and we say, would you be willing to change your vote in order to maybe increase this person's chances of winning? And the whole premise on this, Tom, is if you go up to our website at Ohio Conservatives United, what you'll see there in our opening statement pretty much sums it up. And basically it says that if we go into the presidential primaries in March united, we're going to win. If we go in split and fractured and everybody's voting for their own person, we're going to lose. Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. So, John, let's get to the results. What who won the first poll here? Who's the winner? Well, there really is no win or lose, Tom. Basically, what we've done is we went around to Ohio groups, conservative groups, Tea Party groups, 9, 12 organizations, and we said, would you be willing to do this poll? Would you be willing to send this out to your members? And everyone we've contacted said, heck yes, let's go. Let's get this done. Well, we've got, I think we got results back right now. We've only been doing this now for 2 weeks. We've got results back from about 19 groups, and now the respondents number just right at 900, just a tiny bit over 900 people have responded to the poll. And we're very careful how we do this. We want to be completely nonpartisan. And right now, I'm actually going up to our website, which is OhioConservativeSunited.org, and the results are posted up there for everyone to see. And it looks like Senator Ted Cruz is actually ahead in the polls. He's got about 32, 33% of these 900 votes that were cast in the survey. So he's kind of leading by actually a pretty substantial margin. It appears as if Governor Scott Walker is probably number 2. It looks like he's down around 17%. It appears as if Rand Paul is probably number 3 with about 15%. And Dr. Ben Carson appears to be about number 4 with about 12%, and then the rest of the candidates kind of straggle down as they go lower. And for those of you watching on the web stream, I've got a chart, a graph of that up on the screen for the May poll. And John, let's talk a little bit about the results of those second questions. That important question about whether you would change your vote or not. How did that turn out? Yeah, Tom. Question number 2, and keep in mind. 2 of the goals of this survey is number 1 goal was to get data, but the number 2 goal is to get people to talk about this, to kind of create a dialogue, to create discussion, get people talking about this. Because generally people don't like to say, no, I'm not going to change my vote. This is my number 1 guy. He's the guy I'm going with. But when we start talking about it, we find that people really are willing to do something else when you present them with a lot of information. Yeah. So question number 2 said, would you consider uniting with the majority and voting for that conservative candidate in order to increase that conservative candidate's chance of winning in Ohio's primary? And when we came back with question number 2, we had about a 36% of the group said yes, they would be willing to change, and 42% said they might change. Now we don't really do a follow-up on the survey is to the factor of what is your maybe? Why did you say maybe? But generally, when we do this in person and we actually go out and talk to people, or the groups do this in person, they go out and talk to their people, in almost every case, that maybe is, if the other candidate is acceptable to me, in other words, he might have been my number 2 or my number 3 choice, then yes, I would consider changing. Yeah,
and I think that's a very positive thing, that we have an open mind, and hopefully this will start to move people towards a candidate. Because, John, as you know, and the chart shows that I've got on the screen, the field is huge. And if we're divided, we just aren't going to get enough votes to make a difference. So the whole idea is to get people to open their minds and look at some of these other candidates. And John, who were the people that took the poll? I mean, you had a question number 3 where you asked people if they would register to vote in the primary, even, right? To come and vote in the primary, even if they were not registered as a Republican necessarily?
Yeah, let me touch on question 3. The goal of question 3 was to address a lot of disenfranchised Republicans and a lot of the independent and other party voters who kind of see as this is going to be a chance for them to really have a voice and to really move a candidate forward that fits their issues, a conservative candidate. So we said, look, if you're an independent, if you're a disenfranchised Republican, even if you're one of the other parties, if you're a libertarian or a Constitution or even a Democrat, would you be willing to pull a Republican ballot in the primary election and vote for this number 1 candidate? And we were absolutely amazed, again, at the number of yeses and maybes, Tom.
Yeah, and looking at the chart, John, too, what's really great, folks, and again, this is a conservative, Ohio Conservatives United. So this is a conservative, poll, and basically there's 12% of the response were from the Constitution Party, 18% said they were independents, libertarians made up 11%, 55% were Republicans, and then the rest were other categories, and so it is kind of picking up the feel of the conservatives in Ohio as to who they prefer as a candidate. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Tom. And again, the goal of that question number 3 was to get those people who sat out the election, in the 2012 election, get those people to come out into the primaries and vote. And also, it's a get out the vote effort. We really do need to increase the ranks. If we can get a good conservative candidate that represents the Republican Party, I don't see any problem with any of these people who are taking part of this survey going to the polls with pride and going to the polls in unity.
Right. We've got another minute or so here, John. So we want more groups to do this, and you're going to be doing this every month, right, going throughout the year. And how can people who want to participate, groups who want to participate, how can they contact you and get set up to take the poll?
Yeah, we ask the groups to go to our website, ohioconservativesunited.org. And if they do go to the sign-up page and they scroll down, the sign-up page kind of tells them a little bit about what we'd like to do and that. But if they go down to the very, very bottom, they can enter the information in for those groups. We really do ask the groups to do this because we just don't have the facilities or the manpower to do this on an individual basis. So we're asking the groups and the organizations to kind of field this survey, and it's great for the groups and the organizations as kind of a recruiting tool, as kind of getting their people reinvigorated, getting them energized. Ohio is going to be, again, the forefront of the election, and especially with things like going on with Ohio Conservatives United, we're going to be leading the pack. We're not going to be following. We're going to be leading.
Yeah, John. Well, I congratulate you on your efforts. We'll have you back each month as you announce the next surveys. And folks, go to ohioconservativesunited.org and sign up your group and participate in this poll. It's important that we conservatives, know where each other stand and we kind of pull together as we get closer to the primary. John, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and we'll have you back again soon.
Thank you again, Tom.
All right, you have a good day. We'll be back after these messages. You're listening to Tea Party Talk with Tom Z.
I'm Nick Skiriotis, president of S&K Asphalt and Concrete. As a Greek immigrant who came to America legally, my family and I have lived the American dream of freedom, hope, and opportunity. But that dream is fading due to an out-of-control federal government that is mixed up worse than a soup sandwich. We have a president who is putting more and more regulations on businesses, which is stomping economic and job growth. Government has taken more and more of our freedoms. They have taken over our health care and are trying to take over our schools with Common Core. We as Americans must wake up. Get involved before it is too late. We must fight to preserve the America our founders created, a nation that was founded on faith, family, and freedom. The fight is not easy, but anything worth fighting for never is. Our founders paid a heavy price for freedom. 5 of them did not live to see the independence they were fighting for. 9 of them were tortured. 12 of them lost everything they owned, and 3 of them lost their families. Now it is our turn to sacrifice and to fight to preserve our freedoms and the American dream. I am Nick Skiriotis, president of S&K Asphalt and Concrete, and I approve this message.
Have you ever visited Monticello, the home of our third president? Wouldn't you like to meet Thomas Jefferson at Monticello? Tommy Jefferson is a journalist just out of college. Her first assignment is to go to Monticello and write a story about this beautiful and historical home. She accidentally goes through a time portal and meets Mr. Jefferson. She actually gets involved in some historical events, and all along, she thinks Mr. Jefferson is just an actor playing the part for tourists. This is a fun story that includes historical facts and is actually a great way to teach grade school and middle school kids about our third president. You'll find out why he wrote the famous separation of church and state letter. You can order it on Amazon by going to Amazon and typing in Tommy Jefferson and order it online. It is also available on Kindle through Amazon.
All right, and we are back, and we're glad to have you with us, and we hope you enjoyed John McAvoy's presentation, and you can go to Ohio Conservative. You can go to the website for OhioConservativesUnited.org to see poll results, and you can actually see the results by each group. In other words, the Portage County Tea Party's results are up there, the Toledo Tea Parties, the Marietta Tea Parties. So you can see the groups that participated and see the results within the groups, because you can see differences there. So it's really a great thing, and we hope it'll help you understand. I just think it's really interesting that in the Tea Party movement, I always tell those of you who listen to the show that, you know, we are the really the marketplace of ideas. And here you have this poll where there's been no promotion, no TV ads running. You know, you're just basically everyone in the movement kind of looking at themselves, at candidates individually. And then you can see they coalesce, and 32% of them come out for Ted Cruz. I just think that shows the strength of our movement, that we are free thinkers. We don't need anybody to tell us who's good and who's bad. We can figure that out ourselves. And that's why on the OhioConservativesUnited.org website, you won't even see any information about the candidates, because they don't want to prejudice your opinion or your view at all. It's just straight up, what do you think? And here's what they report. Great job, John McAvoy and the people up in the Northwest Ohio Conservative Coalition. You guys are the greatest. We greatly appreciate it. All right, I want to talk to you about a couple things. You know, you come here and I talk about, come here to learn the truth, and I try to help you with the truth. And many of you may not know, but over the weekend, there was a vote in Ireland about gay marriage, and the vote did pass. 61% of the people in Ireland. Now, Ireland's a very small country. There's only 3.2 million people there, and only about 60% of them actually cast a ballot. So, you got to keep that in perspective. But gay marriage was on the ballot, and Ireland became the first country to support gay marriage. But I want, as usual, to give you the rest of the story behind that, okay? Because it's never what it seems, particularly when the left's involved, because they're really always in the business of distorting everything that they touch. So here's what really happened. The vote wasn't this weekend. They started this 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the gay rights people and the leftists on the right who want to use gay marriage, and I've told you many times on the show, this has nothing to do with gay rights or with marriage. This is all intended to destroy religious freedom. Okay? And so 10 years ago, they started this campaign through the European Union. Okay? And so this is all part of a bigger plan. But when you see this vote, there's a quote in an article in Breitbart where a gentleman named Fergus O'Brien, which is really an Irish name, I guess, a one-time policy advisor to the president of the European Parliament, pointed out what defenders of traditional marriage were up against in Ireland. All the political parties, about 160 of the 166 members of Parliament, all the media, all the major U.S. multinationals, and 90% of the funding was on the yes side. It is extraordinary and something approaching a miracle that 40% of the voters had the courage to vote no. Even at the time of this writing, the BBC, which dominates, that's the only media they have, were predominantly quoting the Irish health minister without challenge as saying the results was a 75% landslide in favor of gay marriage when the vote was actually 61%. Okay? So again, the people in Ireland were manipulated with the same things they're doing here in the United States. Okay? But there's good news in this because, folks, as I've said to you on the show before, I've read the Ohio 6th District Court of Appeals on the gay marriage issue. And this is what the Supreme Court is going to decide in the month of June. And in his ruling to uphold Ohio's right to where we voted in Ohio and in Michigan and Tennessee and a couple other states, that we voted by 66% to say that marriage is between one man and one woman. That's what the people of Ohio said. And in his decision supporting that and against this imposition of gay marriage by radical judges, his main reason for saying that the courts should not get involved, meaning the U.S. Supreme Court, was because the gay movement, quote unquote, and in my opinion, the left movement, has been successful in following the normal path to getting laws changed. In other words, by popular vote, or in 8 states, by electing people to your House or your Senate in your state who voted to legalize gay marriage. So the judge in the 6th District Court is saying, you don't need the Supreme Court to rule here because the evidence isn't there to suggest that they're being denied the opportunity to convince their fellow citizens. So guess what happens when they vote for gay marriage in Ireland? It proves that the gay movement can go to the people and pass this. And we all know how our activist judges, love to look at international law, right, to change our Constitution. So they cannot rule for gay marriage in this Supreme Court case. They must uphold the Constitution and protect states' rights, and that's what I think they're going to do. And I'm going to write a press release about how the vote in Ireland makes it clear that the Supreme Court should not impose gay marriage on all of America when the people have voted otherwise. So that's what you didn't know about what happened in Ireland. I hope that helps put things in perspective with you. The second story I want to talk about, we talked about Al Sharpton coming to Ohio, going to Cleveland to help stir things up. And there was a story that came out this week, and I've talked to you about the fact that George Soros pays these protesters. $32 million, George Soros, the leftist billionaire, paid to have these protesters in Ferguson, New York, and Baltimore, and the ones in Cleveland are paid. Okay? So guess what? This week a story came out, and the protesters are now protesting against the Soros groups because they were promised $5,000 a month. These protesters were getting paid $5,000 a month. And now these organizations are cutting them off because the protests have moved to other cities, and they're protesting and demanding that they get paid. Okay, so think about that. So now, it's not my opinion anymore. You can find videos. I'll email you the story. But basically, there's a group in Missouri called MORE, Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment. And they are the Missouri branch of the former Acorn, which went out of business. And basically what they're talking about in this story is that all these white guys run all these charities, okay, these supposed nonprofits that are for social justice and pay these protesters. Well, guess what? They're getting millions of dollars in donations, and they're spending it on themselves and not on the protesters. So these protesters who are these black people who were promised money to fight, in Ferguson and Baltimore and to fight for social justice and all that nonsense, which social justice is another word for communism. That's what social justice is. Okay, they're saying that there's questions that have been raised as to how the movement is to sustain itself when white nonprofits are hoarding monies collected off of black bodies. So yeah. Guess who's the real racist? Not the Tea Party, not white Americans, not Republicans, but the liberal leftists are the racists. Okay? That's what this is all about. They're all paid, and now they're not even getting their money because they're being stiffed by these people on the left who have no morals and no values, as I've expressed to you and have explained to you. Okay? And so that's the story about why Al Sharpton's coming to Cleveland. He's coming to Cleveland to stir things up. He doesn't care about those 2 people who were shot by the police and killed. He doesn't care about that. He's race hustling. He's trying to hold us hostage, and we can't allow that. I want to move on to my final story today, and this is the Clinton charity. And, it's just absolutely amazing to me that the left and people, Hillary Clinton is just completely way ahead in the polls. Okay? Well, now we find out that her charity only gives 10% of the money to the causes that they say. But even worse, what has happened is that their charity was in Massachusetts, was legally set up in Massachusetts. In 2008, it was forcibly revoked. In other words, they didn't have IRS permission to collect these supposed donations for these supposed charities. And so they've been illegally collecting this money and telling people they can write it off on their taxes when the state of Massachusetts basically removed their IRS, status. So they're not even, the charity isn't even a charity, and now it's doing it illegally. And what, no one's going to press charges? No one's going to press charges against Hillary Clinton? You just got to be kidding me. You just got to be kidding me. I want to bring your attention to a couple other things here before we wrap up the show. One, we're coming up with renewal on our contract, and we really need you to help us keep the show on the air, and we'd even like to expand it to some other stations if we can. So I'd like you to go to teapartytalkwithtomz.com, and there's a donate link there, and you can even sign up to give $5 a month, and it just takes it every month. But you can make a donation to keep us on the air at teapartytalkwithtomz.com, and I'd really appreciate you doing that. I think our show is growing. We did that test a few weeks ago. We found out that there's almost 2,000 people who listen to the live radio broadcast. We have 500 people watching the video. We have another several hundred people doing it on iHeart, and the show is growing. So if you like the show, go to teapartytalkwithtomz.com and make a donation. Just click on the donate link. We've got some great events coming up here in Northeast Ohio. For those of you in this area, the Ohio Christian Alliance is having their Spring Freedom Banquet, and that is going to be on Thursday, June 4th at the Galaxy Banquet Center in Wadsworth, Ohio. And they're going to have our good friend John Fund and Dave Yost, the auditor of Ohio. And John Fund is going to be talking about voter fraud and election reform in Ohio. And Dave Yost has stood strong on that. So Chris Long's put together a nice banquet. The tickets are $55 for a single ticket. And you can go to ohioca.org, ohioca for Christian Alliance.org to get your tickets. We also have another event that we just heard about that's coming up, and that is on the 18th of June, Thursday the 18th at Tanglewood Country Club in Chagrin Falls. Rafael Cruz, father of Senator Ted Cruz, is going to be speaking there. And you can go to a luncheon with Rafael Cruz for $35 per person, but there's limited seating for that. Or at 7 o'clock on Thursday, June 18th, they're going to have a speech by Rafael Cruz, and that's free and open to the public. So if you go to eventbrite.com, okay, eventbrite.com, and just search on Rafael Cruz, and Rafael is spelled R-A-F-A-E-L, Cruz, you'll see the information, and you can get your tickets. And I suggest you do so quickly because that room is going to fill up. I also wanted to let you know that I'm going to be down in kind of western central part of the state on Tuesday, June 9th. I will be in Bellefontaine, Ohio, speaking with the Top of Ohio Patriots group at 7 p.m. And I hope those of you down in the Columbus area and in Dayton and kind of the western part of the state will join me there. I'd really love to see you and meet you there. I appreciate you listening to Tea Party Talk with Tom Z. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope you go to teapartytalkwithtomz.com and make a donation to keep the show on the air. And we'll be back again next week. That our children are no longer being taught about the founding of our nation and the uniqueness of our Constitution in our schools today. Far too many of our citizens grow up not knowing how they came to benefit from the incredible freedoms and liberties that are unique to U.S. citizens. Don't let that happen to the children in your life. If you have children entering 1st through 6th grade in your family or even in your neighborhood, send them to the Liberty Camp for Kids this summer. The cost is only $30 per child for the week-long half-day camp, held from July 20th to the 24th at the awesome facilities of the Portage County Historical Society in Ravenna, Ohio. Go to LibertyCampForKids.com or Liberty Camp for Kids on Facebook to view videos and see pictures of previous camps and then sign up. This camp is full of activities that bring history to life in a way that engages young hearts and minds. Send the special children in your life to the Liberty Camp for Kids, where they will experience the founding of our nation firsthand. Go to LibertyCampForKids.com right now.